So this is my latest commission project. It is by far the biggest canvas that I've had the opportunity to work on. It was just delivered in the rain on the back of a ute. So I'm hoping that it hasn't been damaged, but there is a good chance that it has been. So I'm pretty eager to cut it open and have a look. Yeah, it only just fits in the studio, so it's going to be interesting setting this up to paint as well. But let's jump into it and let's cut this open. In the corner where it is now, and we'll see how we go. Alright, that was quite a journey, but the moment of truth, let's see if we've got a nice clean panel to work with. Believe it or not, it actually looks undamaged, which is great. Now I've just got to figure out how I'm actually going to paint it in here. So we've just jumped across into the spare room where I have gone ahead and set up the easel and thrown my canvas up on it. The easel came just at the right time for this project. It would have been really hard to work on without it. But now I'm just going to go ahead and bring in 2 studio lights. I'll have one on each side. I've got a trestle table set up that I can set up all my paints on to work from. Thrown down a drop sheet so I don't get paint everywhere. But yeah, so far this project is off to a good start. But let's start setting things up. And just to bring you over here quickly, this is the majority of the materials that I'm going to be using. This is all acrylic paint. Got some bigger tubs as well as some tubes. And I've also got this heavy gel mixing medium, which you mix, it's an impasto. You mix it into your paint and it gives your paint a lot more structure. So because I'm doing this painting, primarily it is going to be done with palette knives once I get past the underpainting stage. I really want that thick, nice, layered sort of knife stroke of paint once I actually get to that stage of the application. So yeah, I just picked up some cheap plastic paint knives, got some fresh ones as well as some more that I need to grab from the studio. Nice flat palette because, as I said, I'm going to be mixing up and needing to scoop up that paint off the palette. But yeah, this is essentially my materials list for this painting. Alright, I was just mixing up some paint and I just wanted to quickly explain what I'm doing with it. So I'm just going to mix up a slightly darker tone over here, which I'm working on in the clouds. And basically I'm using this heavy gel, which is an impasto. And it's really easy to use. Basically all you do is you add it into the mixture of your paint, and I mean, here's a good example anyway. You can see that's paint fresh out of the tube, and this is what this gel looks like. And as opposed to leaving your paint quite runny and not having much structure or integrity, you're adding those components from this impasto into your paint. So you simply just mix it in. You want to make sure that it is mixed in quite well. I'm just doing it all by feel. I don't know if there's, I don't think there's no right or wrong. in terms of how much you use. It just depends how much you want the effect to shine through in your paint, I guess. And you can already see that this paint is holding its form a lot more now that I have that mixed into it. And because I'm painting with palette knives, that is exactly what I want. So I'm just going to mix this up quickly, just adding a bit of Payne's Grey and a little bit of this cool blue that I have, and then I'll take you over to the canvas and I'll show you what I mean when applying it. Alright, I'm not sure exactly how well this is going to show up on the canvas and on the camera at the moment, but basically all I'm doing now is generously applying a lot of paint to my palette knife, and then just working through my reference and really finding the different layers of tone and sort of blending with my palette knife almost as I go. I really want a lot of sort of transparency in the layers where you can see the individual strokes and you can see different sections really pull forward to the viewer is the sort of goal that I'm going for. Something else that I really liked in my underpainting was a lot of the drips that I had going, so I think I'm going to be hitting this with a spray bottle occasionally as I'm painting and see what sort of effect I can get with that. I think that has the opportunity to hopefully lead somewhere quite interesting. But yeah, this is basically where I'm at right now. I haven't done a painting like this in ages. I'm going to probably add more of the impasto as I go, just to really build up those later layers and really add to the highlights. But yeah, so far so good. it was quite interesting doing this painting with the palette knives. I'd done very little painting with palette knives before, more so just for adding texture or points of interest to sections like backgrounds or sections on faces, on portraits or things like that. But more so, yeah, points of interest as opposed to a entire composition or an entire piece that's based around using the palette knives. But overall, I had a lot of fun using them. It was a really different way of working, and it felt really sort of fresh. And yeah, I don't know, it was a completely different way to approach a painting, which I think creatively, I really enjoyed that process. The only sort of trouble that I ran into was when I was working on basically this whole section here, when I'm working on all of the small branches and different sections of line work to really build up that volume in the tree. It did become quite difficult at times, just because it's hard to get small individual thin strokes with palette knives, and to have to do that over and over and over to get that volume in the tree was quite a challenge, but it was a fun challenge nonetheless. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the palette knives, and wouldn't mind sort of exploring doing more paintings with the palette knives. I think palette knife landscape paintings in particular can look really great, especially at this large scale. And that is pretty much a wrap on this painting. I've just put on the last couple of strokes and I'm really happy with how it's looking. I just need a sign down the bottom. Behind this painting there's a bed up against the wall, so I'm going to ship that out. Put the painting up against the wall, set up some lights, and we'll take some photos, so I'll run you through that as well. But I've learned heaps on this painting. It's the first time I've really painted in this style, and yeah, definitely my largest painting on canvas, so I had a lot of fun with it. Felt a little bit like I was painting a mural, painting at this scale, which I definitely want to do more of. I want to do more large scale paintings. But yeah, I really enjoyed painting in this style. I'm really happy with quite a lot of the elements, particularly the sky, which is where I started. But I really like how I basically decided that I wanted the sky and the foreground to have these horizontal strokes. Decided to sort of divide those both with these vertical strokes along the tree line to sort of give that effect that this is being pushed to the viewer to the front. And then the strokes in the trees are a lot more sporadic because they are the sort of main focus to the composition itself. But yeah, super stoked with the result. I'm excited to send images to the client and see what they think. They've got a really epic wall to put it up on in their new home. I'm just waiting on some varnish to come from interstate because it's still a little bit hard to get materials down here in Victoria. And that's pretty much it. The last thing I have to do is just figure out how we're going to get it to them. But for now, let's set up the camera, set up the piece against the wall, and we'll take some photos.